The next morning, as they gathered for prayers, Madame Clara cleared her throat. "I've decided who will represent us at the tailoring competition." Sandra held her breath, eyes glinting with expectation. "Nilo will go." Sandra's face fell. "Ha! This bush girl? Madame, she'll disgrace your shop." Madame Clara snapped. "Keep quiet, Sandra. This girl may be from the village, but she has talent. I'd rather send someone who sews well than someone who talks too much." A few months ago, Ginello stood at the edge of the dusty village road, clutching her small nylon bag. The afternoon sun burned her skin as she squinted into the distance, waiting for the bus that would take her to the city. Flies buzzed around her ears, and the scent of red earth mixed with the sweet aroma of mango trees nearby. She was leaving village, the only place she had ever known. Born into a humble family, Nilo was the second daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Thomaser, local farmers whose biggest dream was to see at least one of their children make it in the city. Nilo had always been different from her siblings. Where her sisters were content, fetching water, pounding yam, and gossiping under the udala tree, Nilo dreamed of skyscrapers, bright lights, and a world beyond mud houses and village square meetings. She was 17 when a letter changed everything. Her uncle, Mr. Kengi, a civil servant in Lagos, had written to say he was willing to sponsor her to learn tailoring in the city. Nilo couldn't sleep for days. She imagined herself wearing fine clothes, carrying a shiny handbag, and speaking English like the girls she saw on TV. But her excitement was mixed with fear. "City girls will laugh at you," her sister Ngozi had teased. "Your bush ways will disgrace you." Nilo ignored her, determined to prove everyone wrong. Now, standing by the roadside, she glanced back at the village path. Elderly women carried firewood on their heads. Children played in the dust, their laughter ringing out. She felt a pang of sadness, but quickly brushed it away. She was ready to start a new life. When the rickety bus finally arrived, Nello climbed in, her eyes wide with wonder and anxiety. As the bus rolled away from village, she whispered to herself, "I will show them." The journey to Lagos felt endless. Nello clutched her bag tightly, staring through the cracked window as lemon trees gave way to cement walls, and quiet roads became a maze of honking cars and shouting conductors. The air smelled of exhaust fumes and roasted corn. It was noisy, hot, and alive, a far cry from the silence of village. When the bus finally stopped at one of the busy parks, Nilo's heart raced. Her uncle, Mr. Ken, stood waiting in a neat shirt and trousers, waving as soon as he saw her. He was older than she remembered, with grey sprouting in his beard, but his eyes were kind. "Nilo," he exclaimed, pulling her into a side hug. "Welcome to Lagos. See how you've grown." Nilo smiled shyly. "Good afternoon, Uncle." Mr. Ken collected her bag and led her to his small Toyota. As they drove, Nilo's eyes darted everywhere. She couldn't believe how many people were on the streets, how the buildings rose so high into the sky, and how everyone seemed to be in a hurry. "Relax, my dear," Mr. Ken said, chuckling. "This is Lagos. You'll get used to it." They reached his flat in Maryland, a modest 2-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor of a block painted brown and cream. The stairway smelled faintly of kerosene and cooking oil. Inside, Mr. Ken's wife, Auntie Marion, was waiting. "Welcome, Nilo," Auntie Marion said warmly. "Ah, see how fresh you are." Nilo blushed as Auntie Marion hugged her. The flat felt small compared to the open spaces of the village, but it was clean and filled with colorful curtains, plastic chairs, and the faint hum of a ceiling fan. That night, Nelo lay awake on a mattress in the living room, listening to distant traffic. Despite her tiredness, her mind buzzed with thoughts of tailoring classes, city fashion, and the fear of being laughed at. Tomorrow, she would begin her new life. She only hoped she wouldn't embarrass herself. The next morning, Nelo woke early. She quickly bathed, dressed in a simple wrapper and blouse, and tied her scarf neatly. Her uncle handed her a small purse with transport fare and walked her to the tailoring shop where she would begin her training. The shop was located on a busy street not far from their house. A faded sign above the door read, "Stitch Style Fashion House, Madame Clara." Inside, the shop buzzed with the sound of sewing machines, scissors snipping, and women chatting. Madame Clara, a plump woman in her early 40s with bright lipstick and heavily penciled eyebrows, looked Nelo up and down. "So, you're the village girl?" she said bluntly. Nelo lowered her eyes. "Yes, Ma. I came to learn tailoring." Madame Clara scoffed. I hope you can keep up. This is not farm work, oh. This is fashion. Lagos fashion." "Yes, Ma," Nelo replied softly. Among the other apprentices were Nena, the loud and confident one, Isola, who barely spoke but was always watching, and Sandra, who frowned as soon as Nelo entered. "She doesn't even look like she knows how to hold a needle," Sandra whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Nelo's cheeks burned, but she didn't respond. She focused as Madame Clara began her orientation. How to cut fabric, how to sweep the shop before opening, and how to handle customers politely. By afternoon, Nelo's hands were sore from sweeping and folding fabrics, but she refused to complain. When she got home, Auntie Marion served her yam porridge, and Uncle Ken asked, "How was your first day?" Nelo smiled weakly. "It was fine, sir. I will do better tomorrow." But deep inside, her heart felt heavy. She didn't belong yet. The girls laughed at her accent, her slippers, her posture. One had even called her bush girl behind her back. But Nelo said nothing. She was used to people underestimating her. One day, she told herself, they would regret it. By her second week, Nelo was exhausted. Each day began before sunrise. She swept the shop, dusted tables, fetched water, and arranged fabrics. Madame Clara was strict, shouting instructions at top volume. Sandra never missed a chance to whisper insults or burst into laughter whenever Nelo made a mistake. "Bush girl," Sandra sneered one afternoon as Nelo struggled to thread a sewing machine needle. "Go back to your farm." Nena tried to intervene. "Leave her, Sandra. She's new." But Sandra rolled her eyes. "She's too slow. Madame Clara will soon send her back to the village." Nelo blinked away tears. She hated crying in front of people. She forced her trembling fingers to finish the task. Madame Clara approached and grabbed the fabric from her hands. "This hem is crooked," Madame Clara barked. "Are you sewing a sack of gari or a dress? Look at the stitches, all waka waka." "I'm sorry, Ma," Nelo whispered. "Sorry doesn't sew fine clothes," Madame Clara snapped. "One more mistake and you'll be sweeping the gutter outside." Laughter rippled through the room. Nelo bit her lip hard enough to draw blood. She worked silently for the rest of the day, determined not to show weakness. That evening, Nelo returned home, dragging her feet. Auntie Marion noticed her red eyes and sat beside her. "Nelo, what is it?" Nelo sighed. "They're calling me bush girl. They say I can't sew. Maybe they're right." Auntie Marion hugged her gently. "Nelo, listen to me. Every big tailor in Lagos once held a needle for the first time. Ignore them. Learn your work. prove them wrong. Nilo sniffled and nodded. Later that night, she lay awake, replaying every insult. She clenched her fists under her pillow. She couldn't go back to village as a failure. She would endure. She would learn. She would become the best tailor Madame Clara had ever seen. And next time they called her Bush Girl, she promised herself she'd make them swallow those words. Another week passed. Nilo refused to give up. She arrived first at the shop every morning and left last in the evening. She swept, washed, and learned silently, even as Sandra continued her taunts. One Thursday, Madame Clara brought in a special order. A customer needed a dress for a party in just 2 days. It was a fitted Ankara gown with a dramatic ruffled sleeve. Madame Clara worked late into the evening to cut the pattern, but grew frustrated. "This sleeve is not sitting well," Madame Clara exclaimed. "I don't want my customer to embarrass me." Sandra, Nena, and Bisola stood around helplessly. Nelo stared at the fabric pieces. An idea began to form in her head. She hesitated, terrified to speak, but something inside her pushed her forward. "Auntie, please, may I try?" she said softly. Madame Clara turned sharply. "You? Try what? Is it your village wrapper you want to sew?" Nena nudged Madame Clara. "Let her try, Ma. Maybe she has an idea." Madame Clara waved her hand dismissively. "I beg, let me see what this bush girl wants to do." With trembling hands, Nelo picked up the ruffle piece and pinned it differently along the sleeve curve. She remembered a style she'd seen in an old magazine in the village. After a few adjustments, she ran a quick stitch through the machine. When she held up the sleeve, the shape was perfect, a neat, elegant flare that fell beautifully. The other apprentices gasped. "See is a fine," Nena exclaimed. Madame Clara snatched the sleeve from Nelo's hands and examined it. Her eyes widened. "Who taught you this?" "Nobody, Ma," Nelo said. I imagined it." Madame Clara stared at her for a long moment, then muttered, Maybe there's small sense inside your bush head." Sandra scowled, arms folded. For the first time, Nelo allowed herself a small smile. She had done something none of them could. That night, she went home lighter. Auntie Marion listened eagerly as Nelo recounted her triumph. Uncle Ken nodded approvingly. "Good girl. Show them what you can do." Nelo fell asleep dreaming of colorful fabrics, confident that this was only the beginning of her journey. After her success with the ruffled sleeve, Nelo noticed a shift in the shop. Madame Clara began calling on her more often. "Nelo, come and look at this pattern. What do you think?" Sometimes Madame Clara scolded her less harshly, muttering things like, "Your eyes are sharp, Shah," though she'd quickly add, "Don't let it enter your head." Nena grew friendlier, often sticking up for Nelo when Sandra rolled her eyes. Bisola, quiet as ever, simply watched from a distance, but Sandra refused to let go of her bitterness. "She just got lucky that day," Sandra sneered. "One good stitch doesn't make you a tailor." But customers began noticing Nilo. One woman, Mrs. Bayo, returned a week later to thank Madame Clara. "The sleeve was perfect," she gushed. "I want that same girl to work on my next dress." Madame Clara gave Nelo a sideways look, but couldn't hide a small smile. "She's still learning, she told the customer, "but she has eye for style." Nilo felt her heart swell with pride. She worked even harder, studying every cut and stitch. At night, she drew designs in an old exercise book Auntie Marion bought her. One evening, while the apprentices swept the shop, Madame Clara gathered them. "I have an announcement," she said. "Next month, there's a tailoring competition at the National Arts Center. The prize is 50,000 naira and a sewing machine. I want one of you to enter and represent stitch style." Sandra immediately stepped forward. "I will do it, Ma." Madame Clara nodded. "We'll see. I'll decide who goes." Nello said nothing, but inside, something sparked. The idea of competing terrified her, but the thought of proving herself, of showing everyone that a bush girl could become a designer, it made her chest tighten with hope. That night, under the ceiling fan's gentle whir, Nello whispered a prayer. "God, if this is my chance, help me take it." The next few weeks passed in a blur. Madame Clara kept a close eye on all the apprentices, handing out small challenges each day. Neatest stitching, fastest hemming, best pattern matching. Nello pushed herself, refusing to let fatigue slow her down. One afternoon, Madame Clara laid out Ankara fabrics on the table. "You have 1 hour. Cut and sew a simple blouse. Let me see your finishing." Sandra smirked confidently, snatching a bright yellow fabric. Nello chose a deep blue cloth. She worked quietly, recalling every tip she'd observed. She ironed her seams, clipped stray threads, and pressed the neckline crisp and flat. When the time was up, Madame Clara examined the blouses one by one. Sandra's piece was flashy, but had rough edges inside. Nello's blouse was simple, but flawless. Madame Clara said, running her fingers over Nello's stitches. "This is neat work." Sandra scowled. "But it's plain. Mine is finer." Madame Clara sniffed. "Neatness is finer than noise." The next morning, as they gathered for prayers, Madame Clara cleared her throat. "I've decided who will represent us at the tailoring competition." Sandra held her breath, eyes glinting with expectation. "Nello will go." Sandra's face fell. "Ha! This bush girl? Madame, she'll disgrace your shop." Madame Clara snapped. "Keep quiet, Sandra. This girl may be from the village, but she has talent. I'd rather send someone who sews well than someone who talks too much." Nena clapped in excitement. Isola gave a small smile. Nello stood frozen. Her heart thumped so loudly she could hear it in her ears. "Mayma, are you sure?" Madame Clara lifted her chin. "Don't embarrass me, Nello. If you win, people will hear of stitch and style." As Nello cleaned the shop that evening, Sandra glared at her from across the room. "Better watch your back," she muttered. Nello held her broom tighter. Fear trembled in her belly, but she also felt something new, a quiet flame burning inside her. She would not let this chance slip away. With only 2 weeks left before the tailoring competition, Nello worked like never before. Madame Clara gave her time off regular duties to focus on her design. Nello spent her days sketching, cutting, and sewing, her brows always furrowed in concentration. Her chosen design was inspired by her roots, a blend of traditional village fabric with a modern city cut. It was bold, risky, and deeply personal. She called it From Dust to Diamonds. But not everyone was happy. Sandra's anger boiled quietly. The attention Nello now received made her feel invisible. She watched Nello's every move, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. That moment came one afternoon. Nello had just finished sewing the final sleeve of her competition dress and carefully folded the outfit in a white plastic bag. She placed it in the back cupboard at the shop and stepped out to buy thread. Sandra acted fast. She waited till the shop was quiet, slipped to the back, and switched Nello's perfect dress with a damaged, uneven gown she had hidden earlier. She then placed Nelo's name tag on the ruined dress and returned to her seat, whistling like nothing happened. The next day, Madame Clara asked Nelo to bring out her entry dress so she could inspect it before the final fitting. Nelo reached for the cupboard, smiling confidently, only to pull out a torn, wrinkled mess. Her heart stopped. "What is this?" Madame Clara barked. "Is this what you've been sewing all this while?" Nelo's hands shook. No, Ma. This is not my work." Sandra folded her arms. "So someone came in the night to change it, Ma?" "I swear, Ma, I kept my real dress here." Madame Clara glared at her. "If you don't have a proper entry by tomorrow, I'll choose someone else." Nelo felt her world spinning. The shop laughed behind her back. Her throat tightened. Her dress gone. Her chance slipping. But through the noise, one voice inside her whispered, "Don't give up." She ran home that night, clutching leftover fabric. If they stole her dress, she would make another, and this one would be even better. Nelo didn't sleep that night. Under the weak glow of the corridor bulb at home, she spread her leftover fabric on the living room floor. Her hands trembled, but her heart burned with fire. She had less than 24 hours. No measurements, no pattern paper, just faith, anger, and a memory of what she had originally created. Auntie Marion woke in the middle of the night and saw her crouched over the sewing machine, sweat dripping from her forehead. "Nelo, what's going on?" she whispered. "My dress was ruined," Nelo replied through clenched teeth. "But I'll make another one. I won't let them win." Auntie Marion didn't ask more. She quietly brought Nelo water and a warm scarf, then left her to work. By morning, Nelo had finished the dress. It wasn't perfect, but it was powerful. It still carried her original vision: bold African prints, a fitted bodice with hand-stitched embroidery, and a dramatic slit that revealed a layered underskirt. She folded it carefully and ran back to the shop, her feet sore, but her spirit alive. Madame Clara opened the door, frowning. "I thought you wouldn't come." "I have a new dress, Ma," Nelo said, her voice firm. Sandra's jaw dropped when Nelo unveiled the gown. Even Bisola gasped softly. Madame Clara examined the seams, turned the fabric, and stepped back slowly. "You did this? Overnight?" "Yes, Ma." Madame Clara said nothing, but her eyes softened. "Take it to the hall. You're still our representative." Later that day, inside the packed National Arts Center, Nelo stood backstage, trembling slightly as her model walked out in her dress. Cameras flashed, judges leaned forward, whispers filled the air. By the end of the showcase, the host stepped forward with a smile. And the winner of this year's Young Designers Award goes to Nelo Thomas. From dust to diamonds. The hall erupted in applause. Tears filled Nelo's eyes. Her knees went weak. She couldn't believe it. She, the bush girl, had just won the biggest fashion prize she could dream of. Nelo stood frozen on the stage as the crowd cheered her name. A golden spotlight shone on her, while a host placed a sparkling trophy in her trembling hands. Cameras kept flashing, capturing the moment that would forever change her life. She swallowed back tears as the announcer said, "This young designer's creativity and resilience remind us that talent can come from anywhere, even the so-called bush." The crowd laughed softly at the gentle joke. Nelo smiled, proud to claim the title that once felt like an insult. Madame Clara pushed through the audience and hugged her tightly. "Nelo, you have shamed all your enemies today. You're not bush girl. Your city designer? Nalo laughed, wiping her eyes. She turned to see Sandra standing in a corner, her face pale, unable to meet Nalo's gaze. Back at the shop the next day, customers flooded in, asking for the girl who won the competition. Madame Clara put Nalo's winning dress on display in the front window, draping it over a mannequin. Sandra tried to act normal, but Madame Clara called her aside. Sandra, I know you switched her dress. Don't argue. Pack your things. I don't want jealousy in my shop. Sandra burst into tears but couldn't defend herself. She packed her few belongings and left, shooting Nalo a dark look as she walked out the door. From that day, Nalo became the star apprentice. Madame Clara even gave her a special sewing corner and promised to help her open her own shop one day, but the biggest change came when Nalo was interviewed by a popular TV show. Wearing a simple Ankara dress and beaming with quiet confidence, she spoke into the microphone. People called me Bush Girl, but the same roots they mocked gave me my creativity. I'm proud of where I'm from. Her video went viral. Orders began pouring in from people who wanted designs by the Bush Girl, who became a queen. One evening, Nilo returned home from work and found Auntie Marion and Uncle Ken waiting with a surprise, a brand new sewing machine bought from their savings. We're proud of you, Nalo, Uncle Ken said. You've brought honor to this family. Nalo hugged them tightly, tears falling freely. She looked up at the city skyline, glowing in the dusk, and whispered, I told them a Bush Girl can shine, and she truly had. The moral lesson of the story: never let your background define your future. Hard work, determination, and faith can turn insults into inspiration, and dreams into reality. Even those called Bush can shine the brightest. Believe in yourself, even when others don't. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, comment what you learned from the story, like the video, and also share to support our channel. See you in our next story.